Tonight we are invited once again to walk with Jesus in his passion and his death, to answer the question that is posed by Jesus himself in the garden. Whom are you looking for? This question asked by Jesus to the soldiers who are sent to arrest him reminds us of the question that we heard at the beginning of the Gospel of John. The question that Jesus first asked John and Andrew when they start following him after he's been identified by John the Baptist. You might remember that. They begin to follow Jesus, and Jesus asks them, "What are you looking for?" And in response they say, "Where are you staying?" And Jesus replies, "Come, and you will see." And I think Jesus asks us today, like he asked those future apostles, like he asked the guards, whom and what are we seeking and why? And the answer, as we found out, is not a pretty one. In my imagination, I wonder what Andrew and John would have thought if they knew that where Jesus was going was to the cross, to the crucifixion. Would they have followed? I wonder if would follow. I don't have to wonder much. So many during Jesus' time were looking for some other kind of leader, a political leader, perhaps a rebel who was going to rise up against the Romans. Some were looking for a miracle worker, which Jesus was, but so much more. Others were following Jesus because they had been fed by him, and they were wanting another free meal. And so it has been across the centuries that many have followed Jesus for a wide variety of reasons. And so again, I think Jesus asks us today, why are we here? What are we looking for? Whom do we seek? Jesus, during his ministry, warned the people who were following him that his discipleship was about denying oneself, picking up the instrument of our own crucifixion each day and following him. And so are we seeking the real Jesus that leads to the crucifixion? Or are we seeking an easier Jesus, a more palatable Jesus who supports my life, my priorities, my country, good or bad, my way of looking at the world? Come and you will see, Jesus says to those first apostles, and today we see. But can we bear to see and understand where Christ leads us? Here is the man, Pontius Pilate shouts in presenting Jesus to the people. And these words are not just the words for Jesus. These are the words which can be said about the endless line of women and of men who have been reduced to being objects, deprived of all human dignity. Most of these are people whose names we'll never know. We see them today on the news. We see them in reports in the eyes of refugees from the Ukraine, from Syria, from Afghanistan, from these other places that don't make it to CNN. Also, not just from some distant land, from here in our own nation, our own history of hundreds of thousands of African slaves, of indigenous persons, and even today, thousands of Marias and Miguels and even Jesuses, even Jesuses, who are at the southern border, suffering terribly. As Pope Francis has explained to us, on Good Friday we carry in our minds and hearts the suffering of the sick, the poor, the rejected of the world. We remember the innocent victims of war, dictatorships, everyday violence, abortions. He calls us before the image of the crucified God for us to bring in prayer the many who are crucified in our own time, because only from Jesus can they receive the comfort and meaning that they need in their suffering. There are so many nowadays we cannot forget the crucified of our time who are the image of Jesus crucified, and Jesus is in them. Through the event of the incarnation, the Son of God, God made God's self human and united to all humanity. But through the way of God's incarnation, of Jesus' life and death and resurrection, he made himself one of the poor and rejected, and took it upon himself to ensure that we, his followers, would know that he is always there in that suffering humanity. And when he taught us that whatsoever we do for them, for the hungry, for the naked, the incarcerated, the refugee, the outcast, we do to him, we do to the crucified Jesus. So let us enter into this Good Friday profoundly aware of the gift of the incarnation and where the gift of God becoming human led to the cross, but also aware that where it led is not where it ends.